everybody. I'm here again for another She's the Boss interview, and today I am joined by the wonderful Dianne Greyson. Dianne, if you'd like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your business. I know you started in 2014, so just tell us what it's been like since then.
Okay, yes, started 2014. I run a HR consultancy and mediation service, and I provide support to SMEs and large organisations, both in the public and private sector. Initially, I decided that I was maybe going to focus mainly on HR, but then I took the qualification in mediation and decided to try and combine that together. It has been a little bit of a challenge, obviously trying to get everything started, you know, setting up websites and making the right connections and things like that. So initially it was a challenge, but I think once I got to a point where I realised what I actually wanted to do, it became slightly easier. So I focused, what I'm doing now is focusing mainly on equality and diversity. I'm quite passionate about that. So I worked with my passion to be able to do more and get involved more in making sure that I can focus on the right types of clientele, the right types of people, to be able to probably showcase would be a good word, what I can do.
So what was it that initially made you want to start a business, and not necessarily the business that you're doing, but wanting to be a businesswoman? What was the motivation for that?
Because I did a lot of work through agencies, and I just felt that I could do it on my own, and I could bring more of myself to what it is that I wanted to do. I could be in a bit more control. Mm-hmm. So I'm not just, for example, answering an advert and saying, okay, yes, I can do that, speak to an agency, and then they say, oh, okay, I'll put you forward, then you get the job, or maybe you don't. I wanted to be in a bit more control of things, and also showcase myself a bit more in terms of capability, rather than being probably pigeonholed into what people think I can do. Mm-hmm. I think probably that was my initial thought.
So did you have any kind of reservations? Did you feel that did you just know straight away that this is what I want to do and I can do it?
I just did it. I didn't even give it too much consideration. I just thought, I want to do it, and then I'm going to give it a go. Mm-hmm. So I didn't think about, oh God, what am I going to have to do? Who do I need to speak to? I just got on with it, and I did a little bit of research in terms of how do I set up a company and things like that. So I did it all off my own back. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really think about any consequences or anything. I just thought, I'm going to roll with it.
Mm-hmm. In terms of areas of, I don't like to use the word weaknesses, but areas that you didn't feel as strong in terms of being a business owner, what are some of those areas? Initially,
if you had met me 2 years ago and you had asked me to do this, I would have said no, categorically, mm-hmm. because I'm a little bit of an introvert in that I don't like to be on display. Mm-hmm. So what I can class that as a weakness in terms of I didn't want to get out there. I didn't want to show my face. My LinkedIn profile, I had no picture at the time, but I realised to do what I wanted to do, I had to show myself, mm-hmm. Not just visually, but also verbally. So I do a lot of writing articles and talking about things that I'm passionate about in relation to business. So I suppose initially that would have been a weakness of mine that I've had to overcome.
And here I come along, putting your picture all over social media. Yes. Do you think that uncomfortability is something specific to you just because of who you are? Do you think it's because you think being a woman in business has any sort of influence, or do you think
it's to do with who I am as a person? Mm-hmm. You know, I've always, you know, if I was meeting you in a business context, even if I was meeting 10 people in a business context, you know, at a desk, so forth, I'm quite fine, quite happy. But once I get to a point where somebody wants to put me on display, as it were, that's when I didn't really feel comfortable about that. So that's something that I had to grow to learn to do, and to be stronger about me and what I can show people. And I think that, you know, it was a growth. And that's one thing that people who are starting business, they would probably say, you grow as an individual, and you get to see more of yourself and your own capabilities.
And Is there anything that you did specifically to try and kind of help that growth process and to get yourself more comfortable with being out there? Or is it, I guess it's still a work in progress?
It will always be a work in progress for sure. I think the one significant thing that I did was with my LinkedIn profile. As I said, I had no picture. I put a picture up. I started making big connections. I think when I first started my journey, I think I only had 36 connections. I've probably got almost about 1,500 connections. And that's because I'm putting myself out there and I'm willing to have conversations with people a bit more. I've actually met some of my connections and had some good business relationships now with some of my connections. So I think that was the significant thing. And for this year, which I probably would have talked about later, but as it seems relevant, this year it has really been about coming out in terms of stepping out of that box and, you know, stretching oneself and doing the things that you probably wouldn't do. I knew I could. I've done presentations in the past, but I'm not very keen on doing them. So I've done a lot more this year. I've done workshops, all these things that had you asked me to do them 2 years ago, I would have said, no, sorry. It just wasn't comfortable for me. So now I'm making it comfortable for me, and I'm doing it at my own pace.
It's a beautiful thing to hear the story of growth. And I think for many people that are starting out in business, that would be quite inspirational, because a lot of people do deal with that feeling of wanting to hide behind the company name and not necessarily step into that. So well done for making that happen for yourself this year.
Thank you.
Over the next few years, what are kind of some of the things that you would like to achieve for your business?
I want to hopefully get some more clients where I'm really making a difference. So as I said, I'm really passionate about the equality and diversity piece. And I want to be in a position where I can help to develop organisations in that area. There's too much lip service going on. Too many people doing that job that shouldn't be doing that job because they don't have the passion. They're just, you know, ticking a box. And I just want to be part of the revolution of making a change. So if I look back at myself in 2 years' time, I want to have seen that I've actually managed to do that. Moreover, I want to also empower people as I'm going along. So I always say when I'm doing things, it's not always just about what I can get out of it. It's about what other people can get out of it.
And in terms of, just to touch a little bit more on this equality and diversity area, as you said, from my experience, it does seem a lot of the time for some of the bigger corporates that it is just about a box ticking exercise. How would you suggest how would you suggest organizations embed equality and diversity into the culture of the organization?
Well, I think you have to look at the culture, you know, right through the beginning. So from the point of entry, so from the recruitment process, right through people development, and also you know, promotional boards and things like that. And equally, you know, at the top, what's happening there, because sometimes you get things happening in the middle, but it's not being championed by the executives at the top. And you've got to have that buy-in. And if you don't get that buy-in, and also buy-in at every level, that is when you're going to struggle. And when you're implementing, you need to go back and assess, you know, what is the impact? What is the impact of what you're doing? Rather than just say, okay, I've done it, and then that's it, move on.
Do you think given what's going on in society at the moment, in the UK, we've got Brexit, in America, they've got all of everything that's going on around race, sexism, that kind of thing. Do you think that we're ever going to reach a point where diversity is truly celebrated for adding to a company as opposed to just because it gets us more money? Because I think even if diversity is properly embedded in an organization, can it be embedded from a place of general feelings of equality as opposed to we need to do this because it's going to make us more money?
Well, you know, I think that's a really good question, because I am like you. I had written an article, and basically I said that if an organisation is doing it because it's going to improve their bottom line, they're doing it for the wrong reason. You know, it's about making sure everybody gets the same opportunities and the right opportunities, and not discarding somebody because, you know, they're disabled or they're gay or black, Asian, whoever. You know, treat everybody the same. There is a thing called human rights, and we need to look at that. It's about our right as humans to be treated appropriately. Will it change? I'd be very surprised if it does change to that point. But we've got to get to a point where something is actually happening. And I think I put my hands up as well, is that we've been walking around with our eyes closed thinking, because they've said, there's an Equality Act, everybody's doing the right thing. And in reality, it's not. There's been a lot of lip service without the action and delivery to prove it. And I think now we need people who are going to actually make that difference, and don't be afraid to speak, because I think a lot of it is fear, because I think, God, if I'm actually a bit too radical, then that means that organisation is not going to want me. But it's not the matter of being radical, it's about being honest. Again, I wrote a piece about unconscious bias versus being biased. And in my opinion, I don't believe bias can be unconscious unless everybody's walking around asleep. Call it what it is. Don't sugarcoat. Another article, I think it was in one of the American papers, was saying, we can't sugarcoat anything anymore. We've got to be realistic and address the issue. And if you address the issue, then you can work with it. I think there are organisations that do actually want to say, you know what, we can't go on this way. Let's see how we can address it and work with somebody to be able to help us do that. But there's not enough.
Definitely. So you're clearly very, very passionate about your area, and it's wonderful to hear. I'm also very passionate about it. Where do you think that passion originally stems from?
I would say probably my mother, because she always said to me when I was younger that if somebody needs help, you must help them, which we did through our life, and it's always been with me. I don't like to see people in distress. I don't like to see people hard done by. I immediately want to defend them, to my detriment. But so that passion has always been there. But I think in an organisational context, and seeing the evidence, with my own eyes and from what people have been telling me also, you realise that, there've got to be people who's going to be willing to speak and make those changes. And I'm only now seeing people actually having those conversations and trying to get people to behave better within an organisational context. I mean, it's just crazy, all this sexual harassment, which has been going on forever. Come on, this is not like, oh my God, it's just happening. This has been going on forever. And it's only because certain people have said, such a person has done this to me, and then suddenly lots and lots of other hands are coming up. And it's because they feel comfortable, because now people with a name in the world are being outed. They now feel confident to say something, whereas before they didn't think they could. And it's the same with racism. Racism has been rife forever, and we want to eradicate it. I don't think they'll get to a point where it will never ever happen, but we can get to a better point. And I think we need to continue to improve and improve and improve until such time that everybody is treated equally. We can't just give up. We know famous people of old, Martin Luther King, etc., etc. And they inspire me, and I think they're wonderful. But we need to look at who are the people today. Are we going to be one of those people? Yeah. What are the changes that we want to make? And I think if we collectively start speaking and try, because it's a matter of we're speaking because we want to help, not because we want to ignite anything. We want to help people, we want to help organisations, because we know that is the best thing to do for everybody. We
spoke about kind of your passions for equality and diversity. Let's talk about the passion for your business. What makes you get up every morning? What makes you stressed when you're going to bed at night, if anything? So what are the highs of running your business, and what are the lows?
I think the highs are achieving the goals that you set for yourself. So, if the goal is, okay, I want to connect with a client that will enable me to do the things that I want to do, that is an extreme high. the extreme lows are obviously the times when the client saying yes, 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 we do want to connect with you, and don't, and you get pretty stressed out, or they drag you along for months and months, which has happened to me a couple of times this year, where they've said yes, they're very interested, they take all your details, you send all the information they've asked for, and then 4 months later you still haven't heard from them, and then you have to keep chasing. That is infuriating. Very infuriating. So,
I know that feeling well.
yeah, I think a lot of us do. I mean, when you start in the business and you're new, you almost have to expect that. But as I said in the beginning, I didn't think, oh well, what will happen to me, or oh, watch out for this. I didn't even think about that. I just wanted to do it and carried on. But now I'm reflecting. I'm thinking, well, I'm sure I'm not the only one that suffers those things. So, I think it's just a normal thing. And equally, balancing the books, because, when we do things like this, it's like feast and famine. And, you hope you have more feast than famine, but sometimes you have more famine than feast. And then it's just trying to manage that and think, oh God, should I keep up? Should I keep doing what I'm doing? Or should I just give up and go permanent or do something else?
And what stops you from doing that?
Me. Because, as far as I'm concerned, I want to do this, and I feel that there is something. I don't know if anybody's, it sounds a bit cheesy. You say like you feel like you've got a calling, that there is something out there that you're striving for, but you don't know what it is, but it's there, and you just can't give up. It's just not possible, because something is driving you forward. So you just keep on going. And that's what I do. I keep on going, even through all the tears.
We've talked about the lows and the highs. What has been the biggest challenge for you since you've started?
I think it was getting out there, putting myself out there. That was a challenge, because I had to struggle before I did anything. So, for example, when as I said, I put my picture on LinkedIn, I had to struggle with that before I did it. And having conversations, thinking, oh, right, they're going to know I'm black, right? So that means I might have a problem here. And then you start talking to yourself and say, well, if they've got a problem, then you don't want to you don't want anything to do with them. You don't want to do business with people like that. So you just say, okay, fine. So you do that piece. Again, doing presentations and workshops. Those are things that I would never do, because I didn't want to be in what I felt would be an uncomfortable position. So, managing to overcome my own anxiety, for want of a term, that has been a real plus for me. And I think this year has been a lot of learning and growing for me. Now I've really, on reflecting about it, I really appreciate that.
So it's like your greatest challenge has also been your greatest achievement, really?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's lots more to come. It might be a point to talk about something that I'm planning for next year. I'm planning a conference in March, the 26th of March, called the Rise Conference, which is going to be at City Hall. And this is the first conference I've ever put on myself. I'm doing it all myself. I've got some speakers. And again, this is a big thing that I've actually taken on myself, because I felt it's something that I wanted to do, to empower and inspire people. And, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come and listen to speakers who've got a lot to offer. And it's not about us trying to get something from the audience. We want the audience to get something from us and leave and think, wow, some powerful words were said there, and I can use some of those things that they've said to help me.
What is the format of the conference? What is the aim of it? What is it about?
Okay, so as we're saying, the Rise Conference is basically to help people, to empower them, to inspire them, to help to develop them. So I'm looking at people who are in organisations already that are maybe having sort of like a situation where they're struggling because they're not quite sure what they want to do themselves. They don't feel good enough, or it might be that they've just stayed in their own environment for, let's say they've been a secretary for 20 years. Why haven't they moved? Just helping people to think about, why they're doing things and what's stopping them from doing things, and helping them to overcome. So that's the key thing. I want it to be a very inclusive event. So, you know, I want, I'm saying because I don't really like saying the word BAME, but we want BAME people to come. We want LGBTQ and disabled people. We want anyone who's anyone to come if they feel that they want to have some inspiration and empowerment to help them go forward. I also want people who are just coming in to organisations, because they're sometimes neglected, because they think, well, they've just been educated, so they should be okay. But, you know, from education to work is different. And, you know, and had I had somebody speak to me before I had started my full steps into an organisational environment, I probably may have done things differently. So I think I wanted people who were just starting in their employment stage to come and listen and see if there was something there that they could take with them to help them go through the passages of employment.
So you said you want people to come that maybe just starting out because you would have done things differently. If you could go back to your younger self and tell your younger self a few things, what would you tell yourself?
Appreciate your skills a bit more. Be a bit more confident in your own ability. Don't take no for an answer.
Why don't take no for an answer?
Because in life, we find that people like to say no, but no doesn't necessarily mean no. It just means no, not at this moment in time. And that you should, if you want to do something, don't give up. You know, just because somebody said no, because it might be that person says no, but somebody else, you might ask the same question, may say yes. They don't get disheartened. And I think I took rejection quite hard, because before being in HR, I was actually in sales, which is quite a tough environment to be in. And people said no quite a lot. So, you know, I think through that helped me to develop a thick skin, but still nobody likes rejection. And, you know, don't always try and second guess, you know, don't think, should I say, that it's because of you. There was one bit of information that somebody once told me. It was actually the CEO of the recruitment company. When I started as a secretary, and I got promoted, and the last job I did was a regional manager, and I did very, very well for the organisation. But before I got to the point of management, when I entered into sales, I said to him, are you sure you want me to go into sales? And he said yes, because I was good at resourcing, finding people for them. So they said, yeah, I think you'll be good at it. And I said, well, what if they don't like me? And he said, well, if they don't like you, I don't want to do business with them. And I just thought that was sort of like a wow moment for me. And I thought, and it wasn't just me as an individual, it was me as my, you know, black self. Because, you know, I thought, well, they're not going to want to do business with me. But as I said, he said, well, if they don't want to do business with me, we don't want to do business with them. And in fact, you know, I did very, very well out of it. And I'm really, you know, if there was one thing I would be grateful of, and it was having that conversation with him.
It's interesting. I think throughout this conversation, something has kind of become apparent to me. Do you feel that being a black woman in business specifically, and just being a black woman generally, has impacted kind of your confidence and your wanting to not be exposed?
I actually think it is more of a personal thing for me, that I just feel I felt a bit unworthy, and that it's with time and, you know, through the years and what I've done and what I've achieved, I've realised actually I'm pretty good. You know, I did my HR degree in my 40s, and before I did it, I had thought, oh God, I'm going to be terrible. And I remember the first day I went then, and I saw all these young academics and some mature students, but not many. I thought, oh God, I must be the idiot in the room. And maybe a part of that is also because I'm dyslexic, and I just thought that I'm not going to be as good as them. But I did, you know, I passed and I got distinction.
Fabulous.
Yeah, you know. So at the end of the day, I think it's, I think it was more me. And I think there is an element of the blackness in there, because you do know how people treat you. You know, when you see them and they look at you. Again, one incident, should I say, I'd gone to meet a client in the city, and he called. He said, "Oh," at the time I was my surname was Brereton, and he said, "Oh, Dianne Brereton," and I stood up, and he looked, and he went, "Oh." So you can see your face immediately changed, and I just put my hand. I went, "Hello," and then he said hello, and then after a while, he was sort of like he settled down. But you know, you do have situations like that happens, and you know that because what they see is a black woman, they talk to you differently, they say things differently, and you just think, okay, but you learn with time how to navigate that, and I think with time. But I suppose the question is, why should we?
Well, yes.
Yeah, why should we navigate anything? It's not about saying, oh, well, just ignore that person and get on with it. You know, we all should be treated with respect, no matter what you are. And I think because, you know, as you pointed out, you know, being black and a woman and a dyslexic, so I've got 3 against me. You know, it is a challenge, but I accept that there is a challenge, but that's not going to stop me. It's not going to be a burden to me, because at the end of the day, you can't just keep saying, "Oh, woe is me." What are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. Stand up and be counted, and show people who are behind you. It can be done. Just rise above it and move forward and speak the truth, mm-hmm. And make sure that you're there to help and not to hinder people.
Mm-hmm. It's very important. So, speaking to those at the beginning of the ladder and at zero, what 3 pieces of advice that you would give?
I would say to make sure that you are organised and stay focused. I live by my phone's calendar, so I keep everything and I keep organised, because it is so important. Because there'll be a period where people want to have meetings. You want to organise things for yourself. Stay structured and stay focused. I think it is very much quite key. Mm-hmm. Operating out of your comfort zone. Just because if somebody asks you to do a bit of work and there's a certain bit of that work that is something you can't really do, there is no reason why you can't take that, because it's about growth. And one thing that people say about women, which you believe it or you not, is that if a woman applies for a role and she has only got 80% of that of the skills, she won't apply for it, but a man would. Mm-hmm. And I think there is some credibility to that argument. And I think we need to start thinking, well, actually, I can fulfill the majority of that 20% I can work on. And mm-hmm. So whilst doing it, you upskill yourself. Mm-hmm. But obviously, you certainly don't want to get to a point where you're saying, yes, I can do it, and then you fail. That's not what you want to do. You want to weigh it up, accept your strengths, take the 80%, and that 20% will fall into place. And you'll find that 20% is nothing anyway. It's not as dramatic as you think, which has been my experience. Mm-hmm. I would also say, have a great support network. That's quite key. Family, friends, and also people who are in your environment, no matter what your business is, because it's good to hear from like-minded people in terms of, what has it been like for them? Great things that I've learned through my journey is that I've spoken to people who are doing similar things to me, and they've had similar issues, the feast and famine. So where you think, oh, you're on your own, somebody who's been in the game for longer than you and they're experiencing the same thing, you think, oh wow, because it makes you feel better that it's not about you, really. Mm-hmm. It's not about you, it's just about the environment that you're operating in. Mm-hmm. And you should take solace from that. So I think that would probably be my key 3.
Fantastic advice. And if viewers watching want to find out more about you, where can they go to do so?
Well, I would go to my website, which is www.equilibriummediation.com, or on Twitter, it's hashtag EMC Limited and Limited's Ltd, mm-hmm. or you can find me on LinkedIn and just if you search for my name, mm-hmm. and then see if we can connect. The way that I'm very much keen on connecting with people is I want to be able to help like-minded people, or if, for example, you're saying if you are new and you want to start your own business and you want to get help support, I don't mind connecting. But I'm not like some of these people. I've got 3,000 connections or I've got 10,000 connections. I'm not trying to take as many people. I want to be selective.
You want to be meaningful connection.
Absolutely, I want to be meaningful, and I'm happy to be supportive as well.
That's fab, and thank you so much for your time, and I wish you every success in your business and in your future, and again, thank you so much for taking part.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.